Good evening and welcome to Borough Hall. There are 3 items on the agenda this evening. My name is Diana Reina and I'm the Deputy Brooklyn Borough President. Please note that this hearing is being recorded to comply with the public law for transparency. It will be available for viewing on Borough President Adams' website, brooklyn-usa.org, or on the One Brooklyn channel on YouTube. Web viewers may submit timely comments to askeric@brooklynbp.nyc.gov for Borough President Adams' consideration. I'd like to thank beforehand our Land Use Director, Richard Bayrak, and Ina Gusenfeld, our Land Use Coordinator, for the work for this hearing leading up to and during. And so at this moment, I'd like to have first, and Joe Frizzell, our amazing all-in-one technician. Please call the first item.
Calendar item 1-150223 PQK.
This application by the Administration for Children's Services and the Department of Citywide Administrative Services for the acquisition of property located at 36 Ford Street in the Crown Heights neighborhood of Community District 9. Such action would facilitate the continued use of the property as a leased child care center. Community Board 9 voted to approve this application on September 26, 2017. Would Allison Grant, the representative for this application, please state your name for the record and present the application?
Good evening. My name is Allison Grant. I am the Chief of Staff for the ACS Division of Child and Family Wellbeing, established 2 weeks ago. I'm here tonight in favor of the continued use of this space as a daycare center. It was designed specifically for childcare services, and we are hopeful we can retain those services at this location. The current contractor for the program of Early Learn is the Friends of Crown Heights Center. They're our largest Early Learn contractor, and this program specifically serves families that are eligible for childcare, meaning that they earn less than 200% of the federal poverty level, and they need to have a reason for care. This program has about 126 seats, including infants, toddlers, and preschoolers, and I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Allison. I'd like to start by asking the interest of the community for childcare facilities to serve neighborhood residents. What is the number of contracted seats, and what are the criteria for selecting children to attend the center when vacancies arrive for both contracted and uncontracted seats? So there's a total, you mentioned, of 126 seats?
Yes.
We want to understand how many of those are uncontracted and available for the public, and the process to go through what is each.
Okay. So yes, it's 126 seats that are contracted with ACS. I do not know what number of private seats, but we can follow up for that. We only are responsible for tracking the contracted seats, but I will follow up with your team to let them know. Of the 126 seats, 8 are slotted for infants under age 1, 20 are slotted for toddlers from 1 to 3, and 98 are slotted for preschoolers from ages 3 to 5. As of this Monday, we have 8 infants, so the infant classroom is filled. We have 15 toddlers, meaning we have space for 5 more toddlers. And we have 69 preschoolers, meaning we have space for 29 preschoolers. We are at 72% enrollment, which is typical of this time of year, that the enrollment will be going up over the next couple of months, we expect. In order for families to apply, this is a child care site, as I said, so a family would go to the center at 36 Ford Street, and they would speak with a family services worker who would provide them with a child care application and assist them in completing it. They would also have to submit a collection of documents to prove their income, their current status, whether they're working in a vocational training program. If they're currently homeless, there's a document they fill out for that. If they're looking for work, there's some documentation for that as well. So they would work with the program, who would then submit all the application documents to ACS. We would certify the eligibility, and then we would let the program and the parent know whether or not they are eligible for services and what their start date should be.
Thank you. That was very helpful. And
yes,
the information as far as uncontracted seats, all are, the license for the actual center, as far as occupancy is concerned, is it for 126 seats, or is it beyond that?
I'm not sure, but I'll get back to
Okay,
you.
all right. I appreciate the clarification.
Yeah.
Borough President Adams had been concerned that city lease terms were not as long as they have been in the past, and we know you're working diligently as an agency to reevaluate on a case-by-case basis. We continue to push for what are longer leases with the City of New York with an option clause that protects the city as well as the center. Because more financially lucrative opportunities are available to landlords, childcare facilities are at risk from losing their leases and not being able to continue serving their communities. President Adams appreciates that unlike lease renewal requests at the start of this administration, when leases were proposed for 5 years, applications are more likely to be calling for 10-year leases, though still not at the 20-year term with those options that we referenced. What is the anticipated duration of the lease for this lease, and what rights would the city have to renew?
I'm going to call up my colleague Dale Lazarson
you.
from DCAS.
And if you could
And-
state your name for the record.
And I'll just quickly say that we're glad the president has recognized our efforts to have longer leases. That's what ACS and DCAS and City Hall have all been working towards. So we're glad that he sees that. We are working towards longer leases, and I'll defer to Dale.
Good evening.
Good evening.
For the record, my name is Dale Lazarson.
Might want to lift
Oh,
the ankle up.
okay. Hi, for the record, my name is Dale Lazarson. I am with DCAS, the Real Estate Services Group in leasing. And in response, we are very pleased to say that for this particular transaction, while the initial term is a 5-year term, the city actually will have the property encumbered for a little longer than 10 years because we do have a 5-year renewal option. The initial 5-year term also will begin once improvements, construction improvements are complete, which usually take about 18 months, give or take, after we sign the lease. But also, very, very happy to announce, we have a purchase option. Yeah, it's it's a right of first refusal. It may be a right of first offer, but should the owner decide to sell, we have a preferential purchase right. The mechanics of it will, they're very specific, whether it's a refusal or an offer, but we do have a preferential right to purchase.
That's fantastic.
Yes, so the opportunity to continue to provide the services in the community is in front of us. So I'll state for the record that DCAS with ACS, we are here in support of this application, and we would request the Borough President's approval without conditions.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
We appreciate that new commitment to visiting what is the city's interest in preserving what are financial investments into property, that it can protect itself to ensuring that services continue by purchasing what are these facilities, in this case, for Friends of Crown Heights. As part of Borough President Adams' Cross Brooklyn initiative, or connecting residents on safer streets, Borough President Adams believes that making street crossings safer for children and seniors should be a priority. So we just want to touch base on the Childcare Center's location, where Montgomery Street merges into East New York Avenue, in close proximity to Lincoln Terrace. Arthur Summers Park provides an opportunity to improve street safety by introducing a variety of traffic calming measures. So working with what would be DOT to make a call to, I believe we'll be also making sure that we can convey.
Already messaged him.
Fantastic. We have already conveyed the message to Commissioner
Bray.
Bray from DOT Brooklyn office on this particular suggestion to work with your agencies to understand best practices for seniors and children. But we just want to make sure that the Safer Streets model, as part of Vision Zero or any other traffic mitigation measures, are taken into consideration.
Great. And we're happy to hear about that collaboration with DOT.
We appreciate
We'll do our
that.
best to partner as well.
And let us know if you don't hear from them so that we can continue to facilitate that. So Ina's telling me I have to ask you the question. What steps is ACS prepared to take to coordinate with DOT to address pedestrian safety along East New York Avenue at Montgomery?
We look forward to collaborating with the Borough President and DOT. If we do not hear from DOT, we will let your office know, and we will do our best because we agree that safe streets are safe for everyone, including children and seniors. So thank you.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
And going back to Dale, the actual repairs, the accountability of those repairs, appreciating that within the 5-year term before the renewal, you'd want to see what would be those repairs completed, I'm assuming, but is there a timeline attached as part of a rider to that lease that stipulates exactly when certain things are going to have to be completed?
So the way that sorry, thank you. Yes, the way that these transactions are structured, I'll give a general. Most of the transactions are structured such that if there is a scope of work that will be included, it will become effective when the lease is executed, obviously, for the commitment on both parties. Yes. Then there are timelines. There are very specific coordination activities between the agency and the landlord. To review plans, to identify, if needed, phasing plans for work, depending upon the scope of the work. And there are triggers for not only those kind of coordination meetings, but then when the work will start and when the work is expected to be completed by. Yes, okay. Yes. That's also why, fortunately, this particular transaction is structured that the full 5-year term will commence at completion of those repairs. Yeah. So all parties have an incentive to manage quickly.
And as far as DCAS' role in oversight of the construction and/or repairs necessary, how often will there be an inspection?
So this is structured such that once the transaction is complete and the lease is executed, the contract itself, the lease, will be turned over to ACS for post-execution administration and oversight. ACS has a fairly robust group that will oversee, they will meet with the landlord, they'll be the contact for the construction to coordinate, and they will perform pursuant to the regular processes, the necessary inspections that are mutually agreed upon, and the oversight of the work.
And the necessary inspections are according to that timeline as well?
Well, with any construction project, again, generically speaking, with any construction project, there are routine construction meetings, probably routine walkthroughs at certain milestones, if you will. Yep. So there's constant coordination and specific required inspections are probably, don't quote me, but are probably at specific milestones. Yeah. And particularly because based on the materiality of construction, it could be simple things, or it could be some material things. If construction has to be phased because the facility will still be operated, right? That's why the coordination is done very closely with both parties to ensure minimized disruption to the operations and protection.
Of course.
Of the
And
occupants.
Allison, as far as that unit is concerned, at ACS, post the lease agreement, who is the director to that unit?
Sure. That unit is part of the ACS Division of Administration. The Deputy Commissioner for that division is Mitch Gibson. And within that, there's a lease management team that reports to him.
And part of Borough President Adams' vision for Brooklyn includes beautification of our streets while addressing best stormwater management practices. What consideration has been given to incorporating streetscape improvements to existing features, such as involving a community arts organization to create a mural on that godforsaken wall? Adding a street bench as part of DOT's City Bench initiative, and expanding the tree pits to advance best stormwater management practices through utilization of bioswales, or the green infrastructure. I was told we're not using bioswales as a term anymore, it's rain gardens.
Oh, Good to know.
So excuse me, yes.
Rain gardens. I'm writing that down in my notes. Regarding murals, to address, I know there's some graffiti concerns, is my
Yes.
understanding. I've been at the site, but it was a few years ago, and it was not an issue then, so thank you for letting me know. I believe my colleagues were aware. I've mentioned before that we've had some partnerships with organizations such as Pratt. We actually, over the last 8 months or so, have been partnering with Public Color, which I'm not sure if I've spoken about here. It's a nonprofit that beautifies centers. They do a lot of work in schools, and we've been partnering with them for early education, for early learn centers since early this year, this calendar year. So we
What's
are
their name again?
Public Color. It's one word. So public and color kind of smashed together. They're a nonprofit organization that works throughout all 5 boroughs, and we've been partnering with them on first our city-owned sites, and now we're looking to work on city lease sites. So I will flag that this is a specific concern, and if they're able to include it in their scope this year, we'll make sure that they do.
We very much appreciate that. So
Yeah.
I'm going to put here fiscal year 18
Yeah, as a goal.
as a goal.
And regarding your other questions, I'll have to get back to your team regarding what exactly is being done around the rain gardens and the benches.
Right. And Allison, I know that you're going on maternity leave, so
Yes.
I want to make sure that we know who to follow up with, to be able to understand in our past 4 years, how many of the rain gardens have actually
Okay.
occurred, what trees have been planted, what benches have been installed, and the crossing Brooklyn safety measures that we've suggested, just to take an accounting of where we fall short so that we can start coordinating with agencies
Okay.
and be an added voice to be able to assist in facilitating a lot of these things happening and understand whether it's a budget issue or just logistical issue.
Great. I will ask the ACS administration team to look into those questions, and either myself or my
appreciate
number
that.
2, Nicole,
Fantastic.
would get back to you.
Beautiful, thank you.
Yep.
It's Borough President Adams' policy to maximize job opportunities for Brooklynites with local businesses. When hiring opportunities arise, how does the Childcare Center go about filling such opportunities, and what steps might be taken in the future to promote locally based hiring? And this is for specifically our website and viewers so that they know where to contact.
Sure. ACS does not play a large role in the hiring. Our programs that are contracted to provide early learn services do so. And many of them partner with the Daycare Council, especially a site like this, which is a child care funded program. And the Daycare Council has some great opportunities and resources on their website. So we would recommend that anyone contact either the center directly or go to the Daycare Council of New York's website to look into their employment support services for any teachers or assistant teachers or other staff who would be interested in working at a daycare center.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. So this item is closed, and we'll move on to calendar item 2.
Calendar item number 2, 160021 PQK.
This application by the Administration for Children's Services and the Department of Citywide Administrative Services for the acquisition of property located at 2023 Pacific Street in the Brownsville neighborhood of Community District 16. Such action would facilitate the continued use of the property as a leased childcare center. Community Board 16 voted to approve this application on September 26, 2017. Would Allison Grant state your name and for the record and present the application?
The current program that is being using the center for early learning contracted services is the Shirley Chisholm Daycare Center, which is part of the Shirley Chisholm Daycare Center, Incorporated. The families there earn less than 200% in the federal poverty level and need to have a reason for care, including work, vocational training, being homeless, looking for work, etc. Currently, this program is contracted to serve 116 children, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you so much, Allison. At this time, I'd like to ask, in the interest of the community for childcare facilities to serve neighborhood residents, what are the number of contracted seats and what are the criteria for selecting children to attend the center when vacancies arrive for both contracted and uncontracted seats?
Right. So of the 116 seats contracted via Early Learn with ACS, there are 8 infant seats contracted, 20 toddler seats contracted, and 88 preschool seats contracted. Of those, there are 7 of the 8 infant seats are filled, so we have 1 spot for an infant as of Monday. 18 toddler seats are filled, meaning we have 2 more seats for toddlers, and 74 preschool seats are filled, meaning we have 14 more seats for preschoolers. This is an 85% enrollment, which is a slightly higher side for this time of year, and we're very happy that Shirley Chisholm Daycare Center is doing such a great job enrolling with 99 of the 116 seats filled at this time. The process follows the child care eligibility process, wherein a family would approach the center, complete an application, provide documentation regarding their income and reason for care, and then that application would be sent to ACS for certification, and then the parent and program would be informed of whether or not the child is eligible, and if so, their start date at the program. And regarding private seats, I will have to find out the number of private seats that are available and the process for which the program uses them.
And I know I'm assuming if I ask how many private cross-subsidized seats are set aside, that we're assuming the center has available seats. So it's a question that's posed because some centers have what would be a set-aside, and some centers don't. So I'd like that question to be asked.
Okay.
Do you set aside as far as the center is concerned, not ACS necessarily?
Okay.
Just because there's such a demand for working families that don't meet the threshold, but are looking for child-based center
Yeah,
seats.
I'll follow up with the program.
Thank you. Borough President Adams had been concerned that city lease terms were not as long as they have been because of more financial lucrative opportunities available to landlords. Childcare facilities are at risk from losing their leases and not being able to continue serving their communities. Borough President Adams appreciates that unlike lease renewals requests at the start of this administration when leases were proposed for 5 years, applications are now calling for 10-year leases, though still not at the 20-year term. What is the anticipated duration of this lease, and what rights would the city have to renew, as well as any other options or rights of first refusal or option to buy, will there be as amongst the negotiations?
For the record, my name is Jason Ortiz. I'm with DCAS. We have secured a 10-year lease for 2023 Pacific on behalf of ACS. In addition, we have secured 2 5-year renewal options for a total of an additional 10 years. Furthermore, we also have a right of first refusal in case...
You're going to make me dance on this table right now. 2 5-year leases, option 2.
A right of first refusal in case we have an opportunity to purchase the property.
Thank you very much. That's just an amazing turn of affairs, just to know that there's this cautious but very steady commitment to the Child Care Center. Part of Borough President Adams' vision for Brooklyn includes beautification of our streets while addressing best stormwater management practices. What consideration has been given to incorporating streetscape improvements to existing features, such as involving a community arts organization, creating a mural, adding a street bench as part of the City Bench initiative, and expanding the tree pits to advance best stormwater management practices through utilization of rain gardens?
So regarding the beautification of the centers, I will look into whether this site would be eligible to have some work done in terms of art, a mural from Public Color or another organization that we partner with. And for the street seating and tree pits and rain gardens, I'll have to get back to you.
And this could be all one document Allison, as
Great.
far as in the last 4 years, the centers having recommendations like this from our office to ACS and DCAS as far as the coordination of all these items, who by center has been able to achieve or not achieve?
Great.
Thank you. It is Borough President Adams' policy to maximize job opportunities for Brooklynites with local businesses. When hiring opportunities arise, we'd like for you to just state how does one go about those opportunities, as well as small business opportunities to contract locally with future opportunities with the center for hiring as well as procurement opportunities.
Great. So for anyone who'd be interested in working, we would recommend that they connect directly with the Shirley Chisholm Daycare Center at 2023 Pacific Street, or alternatively with the Daycare Council of New York, which has some great resources on their website and could help those in search of employment at a daycare center at this or any other daycare center in Brooklyn or throughout the entire city.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jason, for that fabulous news. I am closing calendar item 2 and moving on to calendar number 3.
Calendar item number 3, 160084, PQK.
This application by the Administration for Children's Services and the Department of Citywide Administrative Services for the acquisition of property located at 6971 Saratoga Avenue in the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood of Community Board District 16. Such action would facilitate the continued use of the property as a leased childcare center. Community Board 16 voted to approve this application with conditions on September 26, 2017. Would Allison Grant please state your name for the record and present the application?
Hello, I'm Allison Grant. I'm the Chief of Staff at the Division of Child and Family Wellbeing at the Administration for Children's Services. ACS is here tonight in favor of the continued use of the space as a daycare center, as it was designed specifically for child care services, and we would like to continue in that vein. Current program that is contracted to provide early learn at this building is SCO Services. This is a dual eligible program, meaning that children and families served there must be eligible for both child care and Head Start, meaning that they only earn up to 100% at the federal poverty level and need to have a reason for care. Currently, the site is contracted to serve 85 children via ACS Early Learn, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
What is the number of contract seats and what are the criteria for selecting children to attend the center when vacancies arise for both contracted and uncontracted seats? And are there any uncontracted seats that are set aside for cross-subsidized opportunities?
Great. So the contract is for 85 seats. These are all preschool seats. Currently, there are vacancies, so we would welcome anyone who's interested to contact SCO directly regarding enrolling at this site. There are a couple classrooms that are currently vacant, so we'd be very interested in your support and the public looking to that center to enroll. In terms of, in the process to get an early learn seat, as I mentioned briefly previously, these families need to be eligible for both child care and Head Start, meaning they should go to the center, they use the same child care application that we have spoken about, which would be requiring documentation regarding income and reasons for care. ACS would certify, the center itself would also certify, because of Head Start centers certify themselves in addition to ACS's certification for child care. And then the family be informed of when the child can start services. In terms of other seats, I can speak to not private, but DOE has direct contracts for both 3K, the new program, and because this is part of District 23, and for pre-K. So in addition to ACS Early Learn, there are also standalone direct contracts with DOE for both 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. I do not know if there's private seats beyond that, but I will check. But I do know there are many opportunities for families. And of course, 3K and pre-K do not have any income requirements. So any 3 or 4-year-old in the community would be able to go via the DOE enrollment process to be determined eligible, which is basically having a birth year and being in the area, and would be able to enroll based on the DOE requirements.
And so just to be clear, 85 students are in the dual eligible Head Start Early Learn program, and then there's additional seats
Yes.
on top of the 85 that are with DOE direct seats for pre-K 4 and 3-year-olds.
Exactly.
And are the 85 student seats 100% filled? You mentioned.
They are not. There are vacancies of at least a couple classrooms.
And
There's a
do you
lot
know
of
how many?
competition right now for programs, so we would welcome families that are interested in applying to that site.
And the same is true for the pre-K 4-year-olds and 3-year?
I do not know their enrollment numbers. DOE tracks that.
Okay. We should find that out. Allison, would you be able to send us a link to the dual eligible program for our website so that we
Sure.
can advertise on our website so that if people are interested, they could just go to our website, click, and it's a hyperlink connection?
Yes, I will do that.
Thank you. Borough President Adams had been concerned that city lease terms were not as long as they have been in the past because more financially lucrative opportunities are available to landlords. Childcare facilities are at risk. Borough President Adams appreciates unlike lease renewal requests at the start of this administration, when leases were proposed for 5 years, applications are now calling for 10-year leases as well as up to 20-year leases. That has or is now becoming more of a practice. What is the anticipated duration of this lease, and what rights would the city have to renew?
Hi, again. For the record, I am Dale Lazarson with DCAS and the Real Estate Services Group. For this particular site, the city has secured a 10-year initial lease term, and that 10-year term will start at completion of the construction improvements that are required for the site. We have not been able to secure any renewal options or a preferential purchase right as of now. However, we are very, very hopeful that with the continued successful relationship with this property owner, over the course of the next several years, we will be able to further secure the site if warranted by the administration.
Could I ask, who is paying for the repairs?
It's a good question. Ongoing repairs and maintenance is a shared responsibility between the tenant, ACS, and the landlord. For the initial improvements to the site, the owner will be performing improvements to the base building at its sole cost and expense, and specific improvements that ACS would require for the site for its unique use and need would be funded by ACS, which is very standard. Tenant, very specific improvements a tenant would typically pay for. So there's a little bit of a contribution by both parties.
Okay, and as far as those specific improvements that ACS budget is going to be dedicating capital improvements on, are those improvements dedicated to the classroom, like internal space utilization changes, or?
So there is a formal scope of work, and the improvements are fairly extensive. There's work to be done to not only the base building, there's some facade, I think concerns there's some brick pointing to be done. So obviously, that's funded by the landlord. But yes, for specific interior improvements for ACS and ACS-specific needs to the site, ACS will be funding those, yes.
And what contribution for improvements, internal improvements, is DOE making through SCA?
None to my knowledge at this point. I know that the financial picture right now remains with the Office of Management and Budget allocating funds to ACS.
And so at this point, there is no shared cost with DOE through SCA, School Construction Authority?
Not specifically for this construction. I understand your question because DOE does have a presence at this site. So did you want to offer?
Yeah. So sites such as any city lease site that has other uses beyond just the early learn program, generally the process is that the ACS Division of Financial Services works with the current contractor who is there, in this case SCO, to cost allocate, meaning if there are certain repairs that are needed per DOE's request for their facility guidelines, or another use for private children, et cetera, then there would be a cost allocation of which funds can be used, whether they're Head Start dollars, capital dollars, childcare dollars, et cetera. And typically when it's DOE that has the other use, the cost allocation is managed between the two agencies,
Right.
and not so much involving an entity like SCO. It's usually when it's, for instance, if they were to have a program that's private or a program for adults that is not contracted with the city, then the program itself would pay for it and it would not come from ACS. In a situation like this, our two OMB task forces would work together to ensure that anything that's required would be cost allocated appropriately to the right funding stream, and that's how it would move forward.
Just wanted to make sure that funds that you may not have at another location where DOE is not renting, leasing space for their pre-K 3 and 4, that you're able to redirect those funds if funds become available through DOE, because I know ACS's budget is very tight.
Yeah.
And so making sure that we are taking into consideration the co-located spaces of two agencies in addition to what would be just the landlord's responsibilities.
Yeah, that's great. We appreciate that. For all these scope of works that DCAS so deftly negotiates with input from ACS, OMB has been, looks through them and is able to give capital funds, which allows a little bit more flexibility with the dollars. So, yes, our budgets are tight, but when it comes to these, OMB is involved and approves before lease is finalized. So.
As far as Borough President Adams' policy to maximize job opportunities for Brooklynites with local businesses, we're trying to request what is the hiring practices as well as steps in which a small business may be able to access what is local-based hiring and procurement practices.
So we would recommend anyone interested in working at this site to contact the site directly, and to also look to the Daycare Council for their employment resources available on their website. They're a great resource for those that want to work at a daycare setting.
And I apologize, but I skipped my third question, which is why I was stumbling over the fourth. The Borough President's vision, going back to the beautification of our streets, we'd like to make sure that there is an addressing of best stormwater management practices. What consideration has been given to incorporating streetscape improvements, if any, to existing features such as adding a street bench as part of the city bench initiative and expanding the tree pits to advance best stormwater management practices through utilization of rain gardens?
Yes, we will receive that information and report on this and other city leases to you in your office.
This one I don't recall that was an issue.
I'm sorry,
Sorry.
Allison. I wanted to I noticed that I didn't ask you about the art mural. So I'd like to just add what is the opportunity to evaluate the public color opportunity at this center as well, to be able to just make sure that the arts, and this is in close proximity to the other one, so if you do it for one, trying to make sure that the other one has equal
Yeah.
access.
Yeah, there are a lot of early learn centers in this community, as I'm sure you
Yes.
imagine. There's a lot of need. So, and as well as other DOE programs as well. So in regards to the mural, I'll look into what the scope is and whether or not the site was included. And in terms of the stormwater management and other beautification, such as the benches, we'll make sure to include that information in the report that you requested. I will say Dale did mention the brick work that had to be done, which will go, I think, far toward, was that the site?
Yes, it is. That's
But that will go towards, I think it will make the site look a little
Yeah.
more crisp.
It's a little more for the pointing of it and any repairs necessary for the brick. I wanted to mention something, which I hope that you're very happy to hear. The Department of City Planning is working very carefully with ACS and also with the Department for the Aging, DFTA. And there have been some conversations now started for these centers and their eligibility in the Department of Parks tree program. So that dialogue is happening.
Great.
Yes. In addition, the Department of City Planning has an urban design team. Yes. And conversation is now getting underway as to what kind of urban design might be applicable and rolled out for centers. The timing of this, the details of this, the dialogue is just getting started, but I was very fortunate to participate in a telephone call where the Department of City Planning and City Hall actually is involved as well, where this dialogue was getting underway.
That is just fabulous news to hear, Dale, and I hope you reference our office over and over again.
I certainly will
You
on the
let
call
them-
coming up.
You let them know I was sending my congratulations on the start of a conversation.
Yes.
Where this is not falling on deaf ears.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Very promising. And so I'd like to end with the last question. Given that there are outstanding repairs on this property, what efforts will be made by ACS and/or the landlord to make such repairs prior to finalizing the lease renewal terms? And we did go over that a bit. I don't know if there's any other items that you'd like to add.
So,
I'm sorry, if I may
Clarification.
clarify.
Mhm.
So in this case, we are referring, apologies, we are referring specifically to repairs cited in the Community Board 16 resolution. So this was approved with conditions, and the condition was that the landlord address water damage and play area safety issues in the building.
okay. As of today, I have not seen the Community Board's resolution yet. It has not made its way to DCAS for the distribution. However, I can address in general the approach to repairs and maintenance. So we talked about scopes of work and large capital work, et cetera, that would be implemented post-execution of a lease. So hopefully the ULURP process will move quickly. We can get to execution. But in the interim, the contract that is in place and/or another one that will be put in place causes both parties to be responsible, both the city as tenant, ACS in this case, and the landlord, for ongoing repairs and maintenance. So if there is something that needs to be repaired that may be putting the safety and security or health conditions of the occupants of the building or anybody else at risk, both parties will accordingly take action to comply with the lease as to who's responsible. One of the challenges, if there's a material repair or maintenance matter, either party remains responsible under the contract, but the affecting of it could be, not always, but it could be stifled a little bit depending upon a payment mechanism, capital eligibility, which is why it's so important for us to have the lease, because the lease term will allow capital funds to flow. So I do know that if there's anything of safety,
Right.
concern and health, obviously, repairs and maintenance under, as Allison pointed out, ACS has a very large administration department and a real estate and facilities group.
Right.
They would manage that and oversee that in concert with the landlord. Yeah.
So we just want to make sure that, I preface this with this building has been in operation as a childcare center since the 70s.
That's correct.
And so just taking that into consideration and the actual community board raising water damage does not surprise me. And so we want to make sure that we will take full responsibility in forwarding you those recommendations so they're not lost in translation or expecting for it to come up at the council or, you know, the independent city planning process trying to make sure that you happen to stumble upon. We want to make sure that it's part of your negotiation to be specific on what is that particular lease term and conditions. And so we're going to make sure that you receive what we read so that it could be factored into your documents.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I think, I'm certain that it's on the way. I think the vote was recent, so the recommendation may have been fairly recent, so I assume that it's on our way to us.
We don't want to delay the
But
ULURP.
definitely.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And so at this time, The hearing on these items are now closed. Thank you for participating in this public hearing. The, no, to you all. Borough President Adams will review the applications we heard today and will soon submit his recommendation to the City Planning Commission. Borough President Adams would like to take this opportunity to remind you that the City Planning Commission will hold a hearing, a public hearing on these items. The hearing is now adjourned. Borough President Adams would like to remind those viewing on the website that timely comments can be submitted by email to askeric@brooklynbp.nyc.gov. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Congratulations.